One of the most famous quotes from The Godfather is, "A lawyer can tell you what your rights are. A businessman can tell you what your price is. But a mafia boss tells you what your life is going to be." In today's episode, we're going to see how that kind of thinking held up over time. Greetings, everyone. Today we're going to look at Mafia, Dead Men Still. Oh, before we get into it, hit that like button for more stories like this. Also, if you're new here, subscribe so you never miss an upload. On March 19th, 2002, 3 men were found shot to death in the trunk of a car in a quiet neighborhood in the city of Brotherly Love, Philadelphia. The victims were identified as 43-year-old Joseph Merlino, 45-year-old Thomas DeLucci, and 39-year-old Anthony Santori. They had all been shot once in the head, and their bodies were dumped in the trunk of Merlino's Chrysler 300. DeLucci was no stranger to law enforcement. He had a criminal record that included burglary and weapons offenses, also had ties to organized crime. His nickname was Skinny. Merlino went by Joe or Crazy Joe. And he, too, had several arrests under his belt, including assault and drug dealing. Santos was not known to police, but would soon become infamous for his choice of ride. The car they were found in was owned by the Genovese crime family, one of the 5 New York families of La Cosa Nostra. It was driven by a man named John Gotti, who was also known as Junior Gotti. He wasn't related to the infamous Dapper Don, but he did know him. Junior Gotti was an associate of the Genovese crime family. His father was a capo, which is Italian for head. He died in prison where he served time for racketeering. So Junior Gotti followed in his father's footsteps and became an associate. He was known as a strong-arm guy who did dirty work for the family. Gotti drove the car with the bodies in it from New York to Philadelphia. There he met up with the victims' families who paid him $6,000 for his services. Gotti would later say that he was hired as a getaway driver and had no idea the trunk contained bodies. That didn't wash with the cops. They charged him with murder and other offenses. He was also linked to another unsolved murder from 1998. In that case, a man named Michael Catalano had been reported missing. His car was found abandoned, and his body was never recovered. It was believed he had been killed by members of the Gambino crime family over a gambling debt. When questioned about Catalano, Gotti again claimed innocence. While investigating the triple homicide, the FBI discovered a secret room in Gotti's house. Inside, they found mob-style accounting ledgers dating back to 1997. These books detailed illegal activities conducted between 1997 and 2000, including extortion, murder, and drug trafficking. Among the names listed in the ledgers were those of Genovese crime family members, including Capo Gregory de Palma and consigliere Daniel Tiano. When investigators confronted Gotti about the ledgers, he tried to destroy them. He initially claimed they were false, then said he made them up to impress his friends. He said he kept the records in a safe for safekeeping, and that anyone could have written them. When that didn't work, he said he wrote them himself but didn't know what they meant. Junior Gotti was convicted of murder and racketeering charges and sentenced to 25 years in prison. He refused to cooperate with the government and provide information on the Genovese family in exchange for a lighter sentence. He maintained his innocence until his death. On June 10, 2009, he was found unresponsive in his cell at the United States State Penitentiary, Marion. The official cause of death was a heart attack. Through the murders in Philadelphia, only one person ever faced charges. Although there were rumors that others were involved, the case was never reopened. Even after Gotti's death, the FBI believed he acted alone. But why? Why would a low-level mobster take such a big risk? According to the FBI, Gotti likely killed the men to impress his superiors within the Genovese organization. He hoped to move up the ranks and needed a big score to do it. On the face of it, it makes sense. If you want to climb the ladder in the Mafia, you need to prove yourself. This is especially true if you're not related to the family. Like Gotti, you have to work harder to establish bona fides. Doing something big, like murdering 3 people, will certainly get people's attention. But it's the kind of thing that should be left to the big shots. The higher-ups have connections and resources that Gotti lacked. They aren't afraid of getting their hands dirty. They leave the bloodletting to the soldiers and associates. It's the guys who actually do the hits are often expendable. If they get caught, no big deal. If they don't, good job. Move on to the next assignment. But why would the Genovese family let Gotti get away with it? He wasn't just disobedient. He was reckless. Gotti showed disrespect to the family and set a bad example. What if word got out that anyone could kill 3 people and get away with it? Law enforcement and civilians alike would have a field day with that. Well, the truth is, they didn't get away with it. Sure, Gotti escaped punishment for the murders, but he faced prosecution for other offenses. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison, the same amount of time his father spent behind bars. As for the murders themselves, they remain unsolved. Who ordered the hits and why? We may never know for sure, but we can make an educated guess. Joseph Merlino was a soldier in the Genovese crime family. His cousin, Anthony J. Tonio Graziano, was a capo. Graziano was murdered on April 26, 2002, less than 2 months after Merlino, De Lucia, and Santos were killed. His body was found in a construction site in Brooklyn. Like the victims in Philadelphia, he had been shot once in the head. It's possible the killings were part of a mafia power struggle. Maybe Merlino was killed to send a message to Graziano. The murders could have been a warning, an intimidation tactic used to keep Graziano in line. This would explain why a low-level gangster like Gotti was given the execution squad. The bosses wanted to make an example of Merlino and the others. The murders had to be brutal enough to shock Graziano into submission. And what better way to do that than by killing 3 people in cold blood and leaving their bodies in a nice, neat package? The victims were not only soldiers in the Genovese family, they were also entrepreneurs. They ran illegal gambling operations and were involved in various other criminal activities. To run a successful criminal enterprise, you need people who can do things for you, people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. These guys were not high-ranking members of the family. They were expendable assets. The bosses didn't want them getting too big for their britches. They had to be kept in check. That's why they were eliminated. In the world of La Cosa Nostra, you don't get to be a boss by being a softie. It takes a certain level of ruthlessness to lead a crew of killers. Being willing to kill 3 of your own shows the other bosses that you mean business. It establishes dominance and sends a clear message. In the Mafia, dead men don't just owe money, they pay it. Blood is thicker than water, and family always comes first. If you're in the Mafia, and you're not willing to kill your own, you're not worthy of the privilege. Whether Gotti was ordered to carry out the killings or he did it on his own, he proved himself that day in Philadelphia. He established himself as a man who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. That's a valuable asset to any Mafia boss, and to think it all happened because he wanted to impress his bosses. That was Mafia. Dead men still. Oh, if you enjoyed this video, check out more content. There's a whole playlist dedicated to Mafia crime family stories. Also, please hit that like button, everyone. Thanks for watching. See you next time.